In this video, we're going to learn how to find the probability of compound events where you have more than one thing happening. So how do you find the probability of two or more events happening? We're going to use something called a tree diagram. So let's use an example we've already looked at before. What's the probability of flipping 3 coins and them all landing heads up? So we already solved this using an organized list. A tree diagram is a way to help make sure that you don't miss any of the combinations. So it looks like this. First, you draw like a V thing showing what could happen on the first event. So in this case, it could be heads or tails. And you label it at the top with what the event was. So in this case, the first toss. Then you do the same thing for the second toss, but this time, if you got heads the first time, you could still get heads or tails on the second toss. So it's another V in the tree for each. You're going to do the same thing for the third, showing that on the third toss, you could still get heads or tails for each combination. And then finally, you write down what those total outcomes were by running through the tree in each spot. So you could first get heads, and then heads again, and then heads. So that would be heads, heads, heads. Or you could get tails, and then heads, and that would be tails, tails, heads. In total, you can count up that there would be 8 possible combinations. And out of those 8 outcomes, only one of them is head, head, heads. So 1 out of 8 is your probability. And you can write that using your probability notation. Okay, so now I want you to try an example. Let's say you roll a 6-sided die and then flip a coin. What's the probability of getting an odd number on the die and tails on the coin? Make a tree diagram and then find the probability. So you start off your tree diagram with the roll, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. And then you show that after the roll, you flip a coin and you could get heads or tails. And then finally you have your list. Now the question was getting an odd number and tails. So let's find all the odd numbers that are combined with tails. So 1 is odd, 3 is odd, 5 is odd. So that means there's 12 total, and 3 of them are favorable, the ones that we're interested in. So 3 out of 12 is 1/4, so the probability of odds and tails is 1/4. Example 2. Now we have a spinner. Let's say you spin this spinner twice and add the results. So if you spun a 1 the first time and a 1 the second time, the sum would be 2. What's the probability of getting a sum of 7? Show your work with a tree diagram. Okay, so you should have spin 1 with 4 options and then spin 2 with 4 more options for each, giving you 16 total possibilities. Of those 16 outcomes, any combination of 3 and 4 will give you a 7. So 2 of them give you 7, so 2 out of 16 is your probability, which could simplify to 1/8. So the probability of spinning 7, a sum of 7, is 1/8. Okay, last example. If you spin the spinner twice, what's the probability of getting purple at least once? All right, so for your tree diagram, you'd have the first split would be for spin 1, second split would be for spin 2, red, orange, and purple would be the options for all of them. And then you have your combinations. So there are 9 total outcomes, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them have at least one purple. So that means the probability of spinning at least one purple is 5/9. Now it's time for a problem set. Okay, so in your problem set, problems 1, 2, and 3 are going to require that you do a tree diagram. You do not need to copy the tree diagram on number 4.